Welcome to the MaXXXine, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/MaXXXine. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the MaXXXine, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience.
All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the MaXXXine. Thank you guys for joining us today. Today I am joined by my evangelist friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday and Friday for brand new episodes of the MaXXXine on all of our free feeds like YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and every other Wednesday on patreon.com/MaXXXine for Patreon exclusive episodes. Our most recent episode over there was our ranking of Tim Burton's directed films. Some other recent episodes include A Quiet Place, Day 1, War of the Worlds, X, and Pearl. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe, come request a movie, come right in. Go rate us on Apple Podcasts too. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we will be discussing Ty West's wrap-up to his horror trilogy. His 2024 film, Maxine, just came out a few weeks ago. It's been a couple years since his splash with X and Pearl, especially coming out in the same year. They probably wouldn't have been so effective if they were some time apart, but the same calendar year was pretty crazy. There's a lot to live up to in Maxine. Does it need to deliver, or does it need to stay in this lane of strictly observation and not say too much, not too much of a commentary? I'm not sure. I hope we can figure this out here today, though. But I'll be the first to tell everyone that this is the lesser of the three. This is Maxine, the film, has a hard time getting out of its way, has a hard time focusing on what to say. We neuter the best part of these three films, Mia Goth. We seem to just confuse her character and where she's going from beat to beat as far as the film. I know she wants to be an actress and all, but she really seems to just be along for the ride in this, and more or less kind of shepherded by different policing. I was very excited to see this film. I enjoy the light commentary on the vapid nature of Hollywood, the sensationalism of Hollywood, and what better place to try to exercise a premise of wanting to become a star than LA, right? It's the prototypical place, right? And I like that this is extended into the police and Maxine's father. There's one part of this movie I like a lot, and it's where Mia Goth goes to find fame in auditioning for the Puritan horror film with the director. All their bits are very good. Walking around the studio lots, very cool. Doesn't seem to go anywhere. Maxine Minx is all of a sudden kind of this badass, which is a little weird. I didn't take away from X her being very capable. Not that she wasn't capable, but she's kind of capable in that she's just a regular ass human being. And of course, the twist at the end is sort of fun, and this commitment of everyone wanting to enter that space of stardom and fame, but it feels a lot like a Scooby-Doo mask reveal.
That's hilarious.
Especially in retrospect, because we see his profile, the dad's profile. We see his arm, right? We see some activity when he goes to that like showgirl brothel type place where you're looking at girls through the glass. He was looking at Maxine there, right?
Yeah, it's like a live peep show.
Oh, okay.
He was definitely looking at his daughter there.
He was feeling something.
He was feeling something.
Hey, no shame.
No, that's lots of shame.
I like this kind of opposition between the Hollywood scene and specifically the Puritan production with these evangelists kind of opposing it, and then it's kind of revealed that they're actors, more or less. And there seems to be this light commentary on us all participating in a greater production, but doesn't seem to go anywhere, just like the rest of the movie. Again, I really enjoy this focus of the potential and high-like nature of becoming a star, more or less. And I can't quite figure out if Ty West is just here as an observer to kind of build this expose of what this world looks like from the right angle, or is he calling out the lack of proper artistry? Because we also see that with RJ in X a little bit, kind of echoed through our director of Puritan in Maxine now, wanting to elevate horror films. I love the parallels. But with all of this exposure and light observation and commentary, there doesn't seem to be a critique. There doesn't seem to be any greater takeaway, unless that is the point that Hollywood is just that empty. So I don't know. You enjoyed X and Pearl. You've been waiting for Maxine, like the rest of us. What do you think of it?
It was definitely a different movie experience compared to the other two, for sure. They're calling this a slasher film, and I really wouldn't consider this a slasher. Although more people died in this film than the other two films, but it doesn't have that vibe. It felt more like a detective movie, but the detectives weren't our protagonists, so maybe not a detective movie. And I couldn't quite put my finger on what genre this movie was. Not that it needs to be classified into a genre, but that would definitely help me analyze the film better.
There is a genre. It's more of a tangential kind of genre because it's also one of these half steps that's been made. They're called giallo films. It's an Italian style of horror from the 1970s. And it generally comes with cops, detectives, sexploitation, and sort of tangentially horror elements. There seems to be this teasing of horror. It never quite becomes that traditional slasher-oriented film. But probably, at least in my eyes, the most important characteristic of giallo films is the use of color and how over-the-top and kind of surrealistic they can typically be. And without that, you really become a little bit more of that traditional thriller detective movie. Because there is this surrealistic quality to a lot of giallo films. So I think Maxine is actually a little confused in that way.
Well, that's definitely a new genre I'm gonna have to add to my list because I don't even know if I've ever seen a giallo film. But I do know we didn't focus on our characters, so we didn't really get to know them before they died, which is something we had in the previous films. We at least cared about them a little bit more than any of the characters here. And it wasn't the psychological horror I was actually hoping for, because I did get a lot of The Shining vibes, and I'm sure you're supposed to be getting Psycho vibes, but I've never seen that film, so I don't know if I'm getting those vibes, but I do have Bates Motel knowledge. I can definitely see those vibes there. So I was very surprised we didn't go the psychological horror route. And we did lose a lot of the sexualness that the other two movies had. That I'm not sure how I felt about that, because even though I'm not the biggest fan of having nudity and people dry humping scarecrows, it seemed like it was a relevant theme throughout his whole trilogy here. But I do like what we did with Maxine here. It almost felt like this motivational film, although there's a lot of mirroring to Pearl, she's nothing like her. And that's the biggest thing I liked about the film. I don't think we completely neutered her character, and I like the spirit we gave her in this movie. I just didn't get the whole Hollywood thing. I like that you said that it's this light commentary on the vapidness and this sensationalism in LA, but I didn't get it. And I didn't know if this was maybe something I have to think about more, or if it's one of those situations where if I don't understand the whole LA fame thing, I'm not really going to understand it. Is it just as simple as, if you want to be famous, you go to LA and we make fun of that? Just like if you want to be on Broadway, you go to New York. And then there's lots of people who are waitresses and waiters at restaurants that can sing really well, and it's just funny. I don't know. That's one thing I really got stuck on, the so what, which I'm glad to hear you are also on that point of what about it. Although I do prefer the aesthetic of Pearl, I did enjoy this retro, gritty visual style. Very 80s. I like it. And we still had a lot of vibrancy, especially when Maxine was outdoors. And again, we have another movie that's an hour and 40 something minutes. So I was completely fine with the time length. I was completely fine with the pacing. I enjoyed all the sets. And she was at a lot of sets. And with that, I enjoyed all the action. I enjoyed everything she did. I enjoyed the plot. I just didn't enjoy the so what about it. You gave me an action movie when I really wasn't expecting an action movie because of the previous two films. And I think I do agree with you that this is the weaker of the three films.
Yeah, I enjoy the genre morphing from movie to movie, and I think here it's another significant jump, but in a more generic way. Yeah, the Hollywood thing is funny, at least on camera. And there seems to be a key observation that never is unpacked in X, Pearl, and now Maxine. And it's probably my favorite part of Maxine too. When Maxine goes to audition, she does this performative thing, over the top, very nice.
In the introduction?
Yeah, the introduction. When she first meets the director and stuff. It's probably the only powerful moment of the movie, and masterfully so, it's trivialized by one of the producers there being like, yeah, that was good and all, now let's see your tits. Oh, okay.
Then cue the music when that happens. Like
right.
That.
It was very good. I was like, oh, okay, might be a great movie. But so what? What about this? You've got these echoes of trivializing artistry for a specific commodity we're looking for as producers and entrepreneurs or whatever. You need to fit a mold. You need to be more American with blonde hair. And I can't quite tell if this is a jab at how corporations will speak out of the both sides of their mouths. Because we also see the director, I think Elizabeth was her name, talk about how she wants to elevate horror. And because we get so little from that side, the production side, with the producers and directors, it's hard to gauge any kind of individuality over there of ideals. So there seems to be some kind of contradiction within them. And it makes me feel like Ty West is speaking in one part for the whole of Hollywood, for the big guys, the bean counters. Let's see your tits. Are they good? All right, do they look good on camera? Let's go. And then speaking for the smaller guys like himself, with Elizabeth, and wanting to elevate the craft. And maybe even defending, on some level, that great movies can still come out of Hollywood. And I like this a lot. I like everything to do with Maxine and the director and the production of the film, her being on the lot with the evangelists there protesting who were hired, or maybe not, I don't know who's acting these days, everyone. But we run a million miles an hour with everyone wanting to enter that spotlight. We're all chasing that. I like it. I think it's cute. The cop is like, I wanted to be an actor.
That was weird.
And he does some recital of something. His partner thinks he's over the top and just exercising his acting muscles. I don't know. It's fine. It's a great way to bring focus onto what you're trying to say. But with the Scooby-Doo reveal of your dad was behind this the whole time, and he's also after the same dream, at least in essence, and that's where we stick. That's where we land. I don't know if that's a gold medal or not, but you can see it all the way through. X, Pearl, and now Maxine. But I guess at the end of the day, the B plot was a million times more interesting. But I don't know, maybe we trivialize it in the exact same way with the end there, where you don't need to be great in anything, you just need to get lucky with that scandal you're part of, that massive sensationalized thing, and that's what it takes to become famous. Which I guess is true, we see that with all kinds of internet celebrities.
Oh man, yeah.
I don't know what happens to them, 6 months down the line, like the girl who was in prison for some years.
Gypsy Rose?
She's famous for some reason. Where is she going to be in 6 months? I don't know. I don't know how that works. But what is Ty West saying about any of this? He seems to be observing it quite nicely in some ways. But why the dad? It's a fun twist, at least out of context. But the shootout, him making a documentary, what's up with this?
Yeah, that's all weird, and I am confused by the entire movie with its messaging. But it's interesting you say that you thought Maxine's character was a bit confused.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I kind of think the movie is just confused with itself.
But that was the only thing that I was sure of that I got. Maxine's character. And I did see a lot of people have an issue with her character, that Ty did something different with her, and they don't really like it. But I absolutely loved it. Maxine's character seemed confusing because she was confused. She just witnessed one of the most horrendous things she could have possibly witnessed.
But she's acting like she's a criminal in this. She's not acting like she's a victim of any kind. She's acting guilty as hell, which I can get a little bit of that, but especially survivor guilt or whatever.
Yeah.
But she's mega suspicious. Therefore, the cops should be on her ass more, at the very least. But they're trying to work with her because...
But she feels guilty because the adrenaline is over. The adrenaline from winning that fight with Pearl is over, and now she's got to deal with the consequences of, I ran over an old lady who looked, in her young days, very much like me. That's gotta fuck with you some way, somehow. But I like that she remained determined. And I do agree with you that her determination and her spirit were not as obvious in X. It might be something that requires a little bit more homework or maybe a little bit more interpretation, which is that what you want from a movie? I don't know. I guess it depends. But she has that spirit in X that she has here, but here she didn't settle for the life she doesn't deserve. And she's making the most of what she has. That she had to learn in X to bring that forward. Because the most obvious thing in the entire film is that she changed her hair. She turned blonde. Which is super significant after you watch Pearl. Because that's why Pearl didn't get the part. She's not blonde. Why Mitzi got the part. Because she is. So Maxine did something that Pearl didn't even think to do. And dyed her hair. And then it turns into this game of, is she just settling? Is she just trying to fit in to get the part? But then with that whole introduction of the movie and the way it was laid out, we know it's not just that. But again, she's going to make the best of it and going to try to take advantage of everything that she can, along with her X factor that Pearl didn't have. Because we saw Pearl's performance. She was given a chance to perform and it was just kind of all over the place. Her smile was too creepy. But then we see Maxine and we're awed. I just really love what we did with her character. And we made her a badass. Because again, she was a badass in X. It just took a little bit more deciphering. Like in X, she walked around in overalls with no shirt. And you mirror that with Pearl walking around in overalls. Pearl wasn't walking around with no shirt. Yes, different times, different places. Pearl's mom would have probably slapped the shit out of her if she even tried to walk down the stairs with no shirt. But I think just little details like that give you this confidence and this badass nature that Maxine did have. But now here in this movie, she's taken it on a whole nother level, and she's definitely not going to settle for a life that she doesn't deserve. She's going to do something about it.
That's all fair and all. One thing I have a problem with, though, is her flashbacks were through the lens of a TV. They weren't through her memories. They were kind of displaced by what it seems to be how she looks at the world, which is through a TV screen, which tells me that Maxine should have some sort of a distorted reality. And I guess ultimately it's just another missed opportunity to go anywhere with, because she's just shepherded around to work and by these cops to make certain things happen to make the movie move along. And it just seems to not really be additive to her character. She is a badass. I can get that. I can bend the knee on that one. She's busting balls.
The guy next to us at the movie theater went, ooh, when that happened. It was so funny. And I definitely agree with you on that missed opportunity, because I felt those psychological thriller vibes. I really did. I thought we were going to mess her up somehow, have her distortion of reality. And that door to her dad, I guess, her dad's mansion, I don't know, gave me the Shining elevator door vibes with that hallway. And I don't know, everything about the placement, the camera work, about that shot just gave me the Shining vibes.
References in films are funny things, aren't they? When you invoke a vibe or go to the Bates Motel.
Yup. You're implying something.
Yeah, or trying to live mighty close to the giallo aesthetic. You're demanding some homework to be unraveled a little bit, on top of exercising your premise of stardom and what you'll do to get there in the most star-ridden place on the planet, probably. At least star-ridden seekers. I can't get away from the feeling that you better come with some kind of critique, and it never goes past an observation. And it feels like Maxine was supposed to be part of that other movie, that critical movie, when she just for some reason got dragged along with this detective work and her dad. It's weird.
Very weird. I agree. How did you feel about the horror elements this time? I know you weren't the biggest fan of how Pearl got Mitzi in Pearl, and some of the horror in X was one of the weakest parts.
Yeah, it's hardly even horror, is it? It's just kind of violence for violence sake.
That is horror. That's scary. You come at me with a knife?
Sometimes.
I'm gonna be scared.
The ball busting was cool and over the top. Great shot. Great double entendre of her being a porn star and busting balls and also stepping on them.
With a heel.
With her heel. Some might say she can bust a nut.
Oh my god.
But the violence with her dad and his posse was 10 out of 10 stupid.
Oh.
It damages this movie in the worst way possible.
Because we also have Leon's death, where the blood just splashes over the VHS tapes, which was a cool bit. Seeing that visually was awesome.
But it looks like something ripped right out of Scream or something. There's something very campy about it in the right way. And it probably is one of the better bits as far as violent parts of the movie goes.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess the better bits, ignoring the end of Maxine, are on par with the rest of X and Pearl.
Because the deaths in X were so disturbing, especially RJ's death, with Pearl getting off.
I'd say that's probably the only good one in X.
The last girl, Jenna Ortega's character, that one was good too.
That was funny.
And the other guy getting poked through the eye holes while he was trying to look out. Those are always good.
Yeah.
Maybe it's you, but I'm not expecting them. And even in the future, I'm always like, no, he's just going to look out there. Nothing's going to poke him through there. Why would she poke him with a pitchfork? So maybe that's just me now being naive. But they seemed less disturbing in this film.
Yeah, it's because everyone was just getting shot at the end, and then a lot of the violence was off-screen, implied violence on girls being abducted.
That's true.
The ball busting, that's pretty crazy. I guess no one got killed, or I assume he didn't die. I don't really know if he would die if something like that happened.
You wouldn't.
And the whole private investigator thing following Maxine, kind of stupid, kind of pointless.
I did like how he died, though.
Yeah, he probably had the coolest death, didn't he?
Yeah. But it was weird. It was weird as Maxine's agent being on her side. And now he's a badass and will do anything for his star pupil.
Yeah, what is that? Why did everyone just all of a sudden be like, all right, we're all very capable and we can do this organized crime kind of thing? Something you see out of a mafia movie, maybe, or...
Is that a thing in Hollywood?
Maybe it's the randomness in Hollywood Ty West is chiming in on. But because of so much neglection and arguable rejection, because it's been handed to him 3 times now, I think it may just be bad storytelling. And Ty West didn't know where to take this thing. He didn't know what to say if he were to put himself in that situation to say something, so he didn't run with the spikier version of this movie.
Because I think there's something meta about the fictional movie they're making, The Puritan, but I had no idea where to take that besides the horror elements that movie has, that this movie tries to have, or if it was merely just a plot device and I'm reading too much into it. This satirical thing that Maxine went from an adult film star to now a horror star, which is something that Ty West does in X.
Sure. The Puritans were also a cult.
Ooh.
Much like the evangelists in the movie, who are basically calling Hollywood also a cult, satanic cult. So I think there's just this echo of cults kind of throughout. There's a funny, meta kind of cyclical thing happening with Mia Goth. Mia Goth found success in movies with the movie Nymphomaniac, directed by Lars von Trier. Very famous movie.
Never heard of it. Of course.
It's semi-pornographic. Fast forward 10 years, and now Mia Goth is probably the most famous young person in horror right now.
She younger than Jenna?
I don't count Jenna.
Oh.
But I guess we could count her. She's in that boat, sure.
But people are calling her the new Scream Queen.
She needs to be in a few more horror films to say that.
How many?
4 franchises. So Scream is just 1, even though there's 2 films. At the very least. X is good, yeah.
Wednesday
does not count.
That's not horror?
No.
She's goth as fuck.
Goth is not horror.
Okay.
Goth is gothic.
You?
You does not count now.
You is horror.
It's horrifying, yes. But it's not horror.
I would count those. I'm counting them.
And she needs to scream in them, like she does in X. I can't remember if she doesn't scream. That's an important part of being a Scream Queen.
I'll get back to you on that.
She's a candidate, and we can have multiple Scream Queens. We always have.
Then they're princesses.
Scream cousins.
Scream cousins.
But like Maxine, she goes from porn-esque to horror. And Mia Goth's going to be in a new Frankenstein movie, directed by Guillermo del Toro.
Yeah, but Jenna Ortega is going to be in Beetlejuice.
Not a horror movie.
Beetlejuice is a horror movie. He looks as scary as most bad guys in horror movies. Just saying. He put a lot more effort into his costume than the Scream guy with a mask and a cloak. Just saying. But that sounds cool. Although I wasn't a big fan of Pinocchio.
Yeah, Pinocchio is one of the few great Netflix original films. But the presence of Mia Goth and all this is very cool. I look forward to more Mia Goth in different horror films. She's kind of over the top in a similar way Nick Cage is, which I like. I feel like actors don't give these weird performances enough like they should.
No, I definitely agree with you.
Like Johnny Depp, he might play the same character in every fucking thing, but he gives this weirdness that's very unique to Johnny Depp.
It's kind of charming. You kind of like them.
Yeah. And Nick Cage does a similar thing where he plays pretty much the same character across the board, but there's just an unhinged nature to him that it's fun. And I will say Maxine was still fun at the end of the day.
I agree.
Which is a sign of a mild success, at the very least.
The movie still visually looked great. The score was great. The sound design was great. I enjoyed all the sets, the props, even the costumes, how everyone dressed, how everyone looked, the early 80s vibes that we got. I love seeing the Bates Motel set. That was awesome. Not sure if that's the real set or not, but it was still awesome. Because that's a great way to save money.
Maxine, the film, falls into that camp of unfortunate films of supremely missed opportunity. There seems to be a specific focus here that was just much more attractive to Ty West. And it is what it is. And one thing I will say that is great about this trilogy is they stand up on their own. And that's really great because when one's not great, the other two or one is mostly unaffected.
Right. Pearl is still my top film in this franchise. I'm assuming, right? It's over. Any talk of a fourth film?
Yeah, I have no idea. But yeah, they're mostly irrelevant to one another, which I feel like the only one that suffers in one direction is Maxine a little bit because it's dealing with the aftermath. And we neglect some of those repercussions.
Yeah, I don't know. I would have to think about what it means to be a standalone movie. Because I feel like X is a lot better knowing Pearl is out there. But Pearl can be a standalone movie. It doesn't need X. But with X, it does make it a little bit more charming. But something about Maxine makes me feel like you don't need the other two movies to enjoy this movie because there's so little to be said about the previous two movies.
Which sort of sucks because we have Maxine, who was a key player in X and now Maxine the movie. You'd think you would want to make it have some kind of connective tissue.
Yeah, because the other two previous films are so loved. Even though we saw that didn't reflect in the box. But reviews that are out there really love those two films. So it would be better if they were hated and then now you have something completely different that you can get away from your other two films that didn't do so great. But in this case, it's not like that. I'm not sure if the end was the worst part of the film or if it was just the part that I didn't get. Again, we should have seen Maxine kill her own father. And it was just weird that the people in the helicopter kept yelling at her, "Put the gun down or you're going to be arrested." She was never arrested. And she didn't put the gun down, right? I think it was implied she shot her father. So I was like, man, put the gun down or you're going to get arrested. But that never happened and we didn't go anywhere near that. We just had this like flash forward dream scenario, I don't know, of her being famous and just waving at everybody and almost this, I don't know, like Marilyn Monroe moment of her stardom, which is what is in the poster. Then we cut to her and the other people that worked on the movie. So I was confused about the repercussions of her, but I guess that's a non-issue. That's just me kind of wondering what happened. Did they just come down and talk to her? Like, thank you for shooting him? I don't know. I guess I'll never know what happened. But I did think it was funny that they had this silent moment where they were going to honor the girl that died from their Puritan films, and how awkward that silent moment was, and how fast it was. And almost this commentary on no matter what, if you die, like, you're going to be forgotten. We're going to move on. Your job's going to get done. Whether you're a star or a janitor or you work from home, you're going to get replaced. It was so silent. It was kind of disturbingly funny. I like that part of it.
Yeah, I like that part a lot too, because it plays up this commodity thing, and that we are all just commodities to each other. We play a role. When our time is expired, we are replaced.
But there's this fakeness to it, you know? Like, oh yeah, we're gonna miss you, silent moment. All right, back to work.
Well, that's Ty West's moment of genius, in him recognizing the lack of any soul in Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure. I took it one step further, and that's the lack of soul in a lot of jobs. But life goes on.
Yeah, the real twist is that is just hyper-capitalism in a nutshell. We are just the cogs, and when we break down, we are replaced immediately without any kind of sympathy or empathy. And what is said could never be enough to satisfy. Yeah, man, well said. I like what you said.
Yeah, but in the movie, they were all just kind of like looking around to see if everyone's eyes were back open and if they could continue doing their work.
Yeah, they were looking around at each other like, who? Well, man, thank you for watching this movie and talking about it here today.
Yeah, man, you're welcome.
Do you have a budget guess?
My budget guess is 15 million. Pearl was 8. This looks a little bit more of everything, so I'm gonna go 15.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any cited budget, but that's probably not too far off. Definitely no more than 15.
Yeah.
And apparently it's went on to make $14.7 million. So, not great.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, but it's also a movie I don't see a lot of people going to the movie theater to go see. Is that just me? Do R-rated films get seen less?
Yes.
So, that would make sense. It's waiting to come to the home.
Yeah, Deadpool's like the only exception of making lots of money and being rated R. Well, over on Letterboxd with 210,000, none of them went to the theater.
Yup. How'd they see it?
Yeah, how are they seeing this? They weighed in at a 3.2, noticeably less than X and Pearl. I see. Seems to be unanimous.
Yeah, I gave this a 3, which I also gave X a 3, so I might have to think about that. I don't know if I would keep the 3 for X and maybe make this a 2.5, but it doesn't seem like 0.5 less. I don't know. I have to think about it. But Pearl is definitely up there. This is around a 3.
Yeah, what is the difference between a 2.5 and a 3, right?
Yeah.
It's tough. It's stupid.
Maybe I have to go see what I've given 2.5s to.
Nice. Calibrate your mind a little bit. Yeah, I like that. I did that recently, actually. I had to readjust some scores. I've been bouncing around Furiosa in my head. It's a 3.5. But I'm like, man, is it a 4 in my head? So you gotta...
You still think about Furiosa?
Yeah, that's a sign of greater appreciation in my head. So it's living with me. And it may require that second watch. I'm like, okay, yeah, obviously I was a little soft in this movie. I need to tighten up and appreciate this shit for once.
Yeah, I still have Pearl in my mind, but I don't know if that's just because we just saw it.
It's one of the downsides of going from a movie like Pearl to this, especially the character, Pearl to Maxine.
Mm-hmm.
Mia Goth's performance in Pearl it's just on another level, right? It's a very, like Joker-esque, very intimate movie. Maxine's not. So it's kind of different. Same thing with X. It just wasn't the right situation to exercise that kind of, artistry out of it. So you can't, speaking to myself too, you can't let the performance of Mia Goth's Pearl interfere with your appreciation for Mia Goth's Maxine in the movie Maxine and, the rest of it. So I'm thinking 2.5. It's a comfortable movie. It tries to be special. It doesn't shoot itself in the foot too much. It does a little bit, but it seems to just make the observation and never really set it up for a stupid answer.
So what?
Yeah, it doesn't. Does it beg the so what too much? No?
No.
2.5 it is. Yeah, man, thank you for talking about this movie here today, and thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmistines. I hope you guys enjoyed that. Remember, we post every Monday and Friday on patreon.com/filmistines, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, all the free feeds, and every other Wednesday on patreon.com for Patreon-exclusive episodes. Our recent Patreon-exclusive episode is our ranking of Tim Burton's films. Which film is any good?
Which film is really bad?
Our next episode will be on Osgood Perkins' Longlegs, the new Nick Cage film. I'm very excited to see that. I don't know what it's about. Do you know what it's about?
I've never even heard that was a movie.
I didn't even know you could put long legs together and it be one word.
Whoa.
But yeah, look forward to that. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas on our Patreon as well. Come subscribe for $1. Come request a movie. Rate us on Apple Podcasts. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys very much. But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion and gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon, at patreon.com/filmistines. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching and keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmistines, signing off.